Hello, and welcome to Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy for North Country Businesses. My name is Melissa Elander, and I work for Clean Energy New Hampshire. The date today is October 20th, 2020, and this webinar is being recorded, and it will be made available on the Clean Energy New Hampshire website. Clean Energy New Hampshire is very excited to offer this webinar. And during the webinar, the presenters will discuss the programs that are available to New Hampshire businesses to implement energy efficiency and renewable energy projects in the state. We are hoping to give you sort of a good foundation of knowledge for what's available in the state for businesses. But one of the most important things that I hope that you'll take away from this webinar is who to reach out to for more information. So kind of using this as your springboard to, or your launch pad to get going with your energy efficiency or renewable energy project. Okay, next slide, Emily. So I'm joined by my colleague, Emily Roscoe from Clean Energy New Hampshire, and I'm going to turn it over to Emily so she can cover the process for asking questions during the webinar. And we really want to encourage you to ask a question at any point during the webinar using the question box, and then we'll give everybody a chance to speak towards the end. So go ahead, Emily.
Thanks, Melissa. Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Roscoe. I am Clean Energy New Hampshire's North Country Weatherization Coordinator. I offer support and education on the New Hampshire Saves program to residential homeowners in Coos County. To get some housekeeping out of the way, you can ask a question at any time during the presentation. To do so, there's an orange arrow that you can see on the image on the screen. If you click that, you can expand or minimize your GoToWebinar panel. Please type your questions into the question panel, also shown in the image. Feel free to try it out right now by typing test and pressing enter, and that should test it out. Everyone is muted during the presentation to minimize background noise. I will unmute you one at a time at the end of the presentation during the panelist part. And if you state your name and business at the beginning, that would be great. And you cannot be seen when you unmute you. You can only be heard. At the end, people calling in on phones, you will all be unmuted and you can ask your question one at a time. And I think that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. With that, I'll turn it back over to Melissa.
Thanks. Okay, next slide, please. So this is just a very brief overview of the agenda. Emily and I, as we said, we both work for Clean Energy New Hampshire. I work with municipalities in the North Country doing energy efficiency and renewable energy projects, and Emily works with homeowners doing residential projects. We have Mark Toussaint, who is an energy efficiency consultant with Eversource. And then we'll speak with Andy Duncan, who is the Energy Trading Manager at Lakes Region Community College and coordinates New Hampshire Rural Renewables. We'll hear from Scott Maslansky, who is the Director of Clean Energy Finance with Community Development Finance Authority. And finally, with Ken Yearman, who is the Energy Coordinator and Business Loan Specialist for USDA Rural Development. And then we'll open it up for questions from the attendees at the end. Okay, next slide. So Clean Energy New Hampshire is a nonprofit based in Concord, but we work statewide to do advocacy and education around clean energy with an emphasis on providing folks with access to the programs that are available for business energy efficiency, working to promote electric vehicles, and working on policy that supports solar energy and other forms of renewable energy. We are a membership organization for individuals, businesses, and municipalities. And we work both on policy that supports clean and renewable energy, as well as working locally to help individuals, businesses, and municipalities reduce their energy costs and keep their energy dollars in the state. Okay, next slide. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Toussaint from Eversource. Thanks, Mark.
Mark, you're muted. Can you hear me now? All right, thank you. I think I clicked it twice. Sorry about that. We practiced this. So thank you, Melissa, and thanks to everybody for being here. My name is Mark Toussaint. I work with the commercial and municipal programs at Eversource. I cover most of the eastern side of the state as well as the North Country. And just before I get started, I'll talk a little bit about what New Hampshire Saves is. It's a partnership of the 4 electric and 2 gas utilities in New Hampshire. So it's us, Liberty Utilities, New Hampshire Electric Cooperative, and Unitil. I suspect most of the people on the phone are either Eversource customers or New Hampshire Electric Co-op customers, but we may have some of the others. So everything I say today should apply to all 4 of the utilities. There are a couple of different wrinkles in how we administer the programs, but we offer the same basic services to our customers across the state. Next slide. All right. So now, why would an electric utility get involved in energy efficiency? I spend my whole day helping customers use less of the product that we sell. And there's a lot of good reasons to do that. It saves customers money. We've seen over and over again that customers have very cost-effective ways to reduce their energy costs. It's also good for the environment, reduces power plant emissions. And we've seen improved outcomes. There's a lot of research out there that shows lower absenteeism in schools and in the workplace, better test scores as people are living and working in comfortable environments where they can see and they're not cold, they're not too hot. So if you set up a good environment for learning or for working, we find that it helps whatever goal you're trying to achieve. And then obviously it enhances comfort. Certainly as I get older, I need more light. I want to achieve that effectively and efficiently. We hear all the time from customers who are going through their day-to-day business and they do an energy project and they do save a bunch of money, but they either make their place less drafty or they make it easier to see inside, and the employees are just happier being there. Next slide. All right, so energy efficiency in New Hampshire has been a huge economic driver. This slide was from 2017. I believe these bigger numbers would actually be bigger now, but we went through and looked at how many contractors we've worked with. And this isn't even on the customer side. It's just how many contractors the program touched. And you can see some of those are auditors, some are weatherization contractors, a lot of home builders, electrical contractors, plumbing and HVAC, and then retailers. We've worked with about 1,200 customers, and that's consistent year to year. We're always growing that number to try to get the workforce more engaged in energy efficiency so that they can go out and bring those services to customers. Next slide. So who can use the programs? We have a little bit, we have something for everybody really on the programs. If you're looking to build or renovate a home, we have energy efficient homes programs. We have programs for low income customers. We have very robust programs for municipal customers, for large commercial. I work with our national accounts, the chain stores, the big boxes, and then small commercial customers as well. So no matter what type of customer you are with us, we have some type of program or usually multiple programs that could help you. Next slide. So what can we do? And I'll speak from the business customer side, what we offer there. We offer audits to customers. Most of those are free. Some of them, if they're very detailed, we do have a little bit of a cost share, but scoping audits and targeted audits are typically free for customers. Municipal audits are free. And for small business customers, we can always do lighting and refrigeration at no cost to you. If you're doing a new construction project, we can review your plans, make sure that what you're doing is the most efficient thing you can achieve with the budget that you have. And we can offer incentives to help you go well beyond code, because your building hopefully is going to stand for 50 or 100 years. And the decisions that you make today will affect you the whole time you own it and will affect future owners as well. So we want to make sure that those good decisions are built in early into the planning stages. We can offer a project analysis on energy efficiency projects. So if you want to put in a new lighting system or a new HVAC system, new air compressor, or snow gun, or whatever it is, we can take a look and say, will this save you money? We can help spell out the paybacks with you, work with your contractor and with you to figure out what you're going to save versus how much you're going to spend. We offer a strong education program. If you go to newhampshiresaves.com, click on the events section, we typically will have this time of year a page full of events. COVID has changed that a little bit. We're doing a little more virtually, doing a little bit more emailing and webinars and things like that. But in a typical year, we'll have a pretty strong slate of spring and fall live seminars that you can go to for free. Then obviously we do offer the incentives. Eversource and some of the others are enhancing incentives through the end of the year to help customers who are trying to get out of the slump that was created by COVID. Certainly we've seen our small businesses, our restaurants, our retail have been hurt pretty badly by some of the stay-at-home orders and just the decreased consumer activity. So we're trying to help them get out of that and get contractors working again on these programs. So we've offered some enhanced incentives through the end of the year. Happy to talk to you offline about that if you're interested. And then once we've done all of that and you have a project, we've offered incentives. If you have any trouble paying for the rest of it, we have a couple of different financing options, either on your electric bill or off the bill with a third party that we can offer to you. Next slide. All right. So this is just a screenshot of our website, nhsaves.com. You can go there and you can find blogs, you can find ideas that other companies have implemented to save energy, other companies or even homeowners. You can see what they've done in their houses. You can read about resources that are available to you. There's an event section that I already mentioned, and there's a section to help contractors get involved in the programs. Plus, it also serves as a place to store all of our information on what the specific rebates are. You can see those two big boxes, the green and the blue, depending on which path, the residential or commercial path that you're in. You can see all of the details on the program there. Next slide. And so that is it for me. If you have any questions, I'll be here through the whole event. Happy to answer anything you have in a little bit. Thank you,
Mark. Thanks. So actually, if you go back to the previous slide for just 1 second, Emily, I just want to mention that these slides will be emailed out to everybody as a PDF. So you will have all of the contact information for all of the presenters today to reach out to them for some more information and some follow-up conversations. So, okay, next slide. Next, we are going to hear from Andy Duncan of New Hampshire Rural Renewables.
Thanks, Melissa, and thanks, Emily and Mark. It's a little bit like speed dating here, I guess, and it's a great group that we have here, and we'll be all fast so that get plenty of time for you folks to ask questions. So my name's Andy Duncan. I'm at Lakes Region Community College in Laconia. We have an energy training program that has a statewide scope. We train energy auditors and facility managers. And then another program that we have is this New Hampshire Rural Renewables program. And kind of our byline is solar, wood, and energy efficiency technical assistance for New Hampshire's rural small businesses. Next slide, please. So we're actually a team of energy professionals, including myself and folks at Plymouth Area Renewable Energy Initiative, also at Innovative Natural Resource Solutions and WAPAC Sustainability. And what we're doing is providing no-cost, vendor-neutral technical assistance to help rural small businesses reduce energy costs. And that could be through installing a solar array, it could be through energy efficiency and linking small businesses up with the NH Saves program or the CDFA program that you'll hear about in a little bit, or it could be installing modern wood heat installations. And we are funded by USDA Rural Development. You'll be hearing from Ken Yearman in just a little bit about the Rural Energy for America program. And essentially the businesses that we can work with and provide this no-cost technical assistance are the same small businesses that are eligible for these REAP grants that Ken is going to be talking about. And then those same businesses are also eligible for the energy audit assistance that Scott Mislansky is going to talk about in just a little bit. So we're all pretty connected here, and it's a great group. There's more information about our programs and links to some of these other programs at the lrcc.edu/NHRR for New Hampshire Rural Renewables, or you can just do a web search for New Hampshire Rural Renewables. So next slide. And the good news is that up in the North Country, you're definitely in the rural part of New Hampshire. The only part that really is considered officially non-rural is the tan areas way down, kind of in the Boston suburbs. And so all the rest of New Hampshire is officially considered rural. And we work with for-profit small businesses, and that's small business as defined by the US Small Business Administration. And are unfortunately not able to work with nonprofit or governmental entities. And primarily, we're working with businesses that are already in existence and have existing commercial energy bills. And for the most part, I think like a lot of us here talking today, what we're trying to help you do is make investments into sustainable energy that generate energy savings. As far as I know, there's not really any programs that are going to like help subsidize your electric bill or things like that. It's more making those investments in energy efficiency with incentives and making those investments in solar, wind energy, things like that, that'll help reduce your energy bills over the long term. And next slide, please. And so some of the things that we can help with, you know, one of the things that I'd like to emphasize, and Mark is a great person to get in touch with about this concept of reduce, then produce. In other words, reduce part is kind of the New Hampshire Saves part, and that is energy efficiency. And so, you know, if you're thinking about solar energy or something like that, really the first thing to be thinking about before that is how can you make your business more energy efficient? And there's so many different kind of options there, and a lot of times the benefits, the kind of cost benefits, even better than something like a solar array. But I know a lot of businesses are interested, and we've worked with a lot of businesses on solar arrays, and we'll do kind of a level 1 assessment, which is look at current electrical bill and look at kind of a aerial image of your site and see if a roof or an area makes more sense and how much solar could be produced in that area, and kind of some general sort of overview project and economic information. And then we can get into more depth, do more of a site visit and analysis of installation costs and energy savings and how it affects your electric bill, things like that. Shading analysis is another big one with solar. And then we can also help with project implementation assistance. We're vendor neutral technical assistance, but we're certainly aware of the different vendors that are out there, and we'll try to hook you up with potential vendors that would fit what your needs are the best. And as you'll hear about some of these other incentives, there's plenty of good incentives out there as well. So next slide. And in terms of the businesses that we've already helped, I know there's some in the Gorham area that we're working with now, and we've worked with a number of farms throughout New Hampshire, a brew pub in Epsom, a campground in Lancaster, an office building in Meredith, an IT company in Conway, coffee house in Campton. So, you know, really wide variety of small businesses. Any small business that has energy bills, as in rural part of the state, is a business that we can assist. And next slide, please. So the Rural Renewables website, just lrcc.edu/NHRR will get you there. We've got a solar, commercial solar installer directory, a similar one for wood energy. We've got a little 2-pager on clean energy financial incentives, and some links to the programs that you're hearing about here today as well. And the easiest way to kind of get started with us is there's an online survey that we call our technical assistance application that takes about 5 to 10 minutes to fill out. And that helps us understand kind of where you're at and how we can help you. And certainly willing to touch base with you by phone or email as well. And here's my contact information. So that's it for me, I think.
Great. Thank you, Andy. So our next presenter is Scott Maslansky from Community Development Finance Authority. Hey, Scott.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I can't see you, but it's great to have a crowd of business-related folks, business owners on the call. We all do a lot of outreach to businesses, and it's great when they're kind of coming to us, joining us on the call so we can share the opportunities that we have available. You can go to the next slide. I work with the Community Development Finance Authority. We're a statewide nonprofit that focuses on community and economic development. We have a variety of grants, loans, and tax credit equity resources available, as well as technical assistance. Primarily, these are most of our programs, or our larger programs, are for nonprofits and municipalities, but we do have several programs for businesses and economic development, and as well through our Clean Energy Fund, which is the program that I direct. Next slide. So the programs I mostly wanted to discuss with you related to businesses are our Small Business Energy Audit Fund, and those are grants, and then our Clean Energy Fund financing, and those are low interest loans. I also do a lot of technical assistance, and I have a background in energy auditing, both residential and commercial, as well as running energy programs such as these. And CDFA does a lot of work and facilities projects that don't have to do with energy, and we're doing a lot of work trying to build in the energy component. Whether you're a business or a nonprofit or a municipality investing in your infrastructure, we find it's really important to be looking long-term at your future operating costs, because we're making an investment, whether through grants or sort of subsidized loans, and it's important that the entities we're supporting through those funds are really thinking long-term about the cost of their energy use. Next slide, please. So the first program, the Small Business Energy Audit Fund, again, this relates to what Andy was talking about, and to what you heard from Ken. This is all related to USDA Rural Development funding. Andy Duncan's program and this program both received money from USDA to be able to support businesses with technical assistance, and in this case, grants for energy audits. Now, you also heard Mark talk about energy audits from the utility point of view, and so there is a lot of overlap with these different programs, but there's a variety of different eligibility criteria and some nuance to it all. So the most important thing that you'll probably hear again later is we just want everyone to make sure you contact one of us, and we will definitely share with you the other resources that are available. And if the utility might be able to offer you something for free, for example, that we can only pay for a portion of, then I'll be sending you to the utility. But in some cases, the utility may not be able to offer a comprehensive energy audit on an entire property that's heated by oil, for example. And so that's where a comprehensive energy audit that looks at all your building systems might be needed, and we can cover 75% of the cost of one of those audits. And that would include looking at insulation, lighting, HVAC, refrigeration, and other equipment, also initial look at solar, etc. And so these are audits that do a comprehensive look at both the cost of implementation as well as the estimated energy cost savings and energy savings from implementing this work. And you would work with an independent auditor to do this work. Many of them are the same auditors that would work with the utility programs. So again, there's a considerable amount of overlap, and we can all help out in a variety of ways. So a couple of examples of North Country grant recipients are the Rattle River Hostel and Lodge up in Shelburne, and Roadhog Barbecue and Swine Dining in Gorham. And we've had many other grant recipients. Those are a couple up north, and we would like to see a lot more applicants from up in the North Country. But we've worked with office buildings, a sawmill, a variety of garden centers, and many other lots of farms as well. So we encourage you to check in with us about that. Next slide, please. And then our Clean Energy Fund low interest financing is a loan program, and that serves really any entity. It could be a municipality, a business, or a nonprofit. We've done a lot of loans related to solar and energy efficiency for businesses. And these can be a variety of business sizes, from the smallest, mom and pop store to, large manufacturing companies doing major, solar arrays or major retrofits. And so those loans, actually, if you go to the next slide, they're range from $30,000 to $500,000, up to 10-year loans. The interest rates for businesses would range from 3% to 4.5%, depending on which of our funding you can use. We've got a few different pools of funds available. And the application for this program and the other program are rolling. You can do them at any time online, and I can walk you through that process. Next slide, please. So the eligible uses of the financing are really for any, most energy-related projects, but we do a lot of efficiency, as I said, renewable projects. We'd like to, as battery storage becomes more accessible, we'd like to be supporting battery storage projects, vehicle charging for electric fleet vehicles, and also if you're doing a project where you're looking to do solar, for example, or you're looking to do efficiency work, and you need to have your roof repaired or replaced, for example, or for HVAC, if you need asbestos removed, we can roll a lot of those items into this loan, at the same, using the same interest rate. Next slide. And so it's really important that you contact us or anyone else here, on the call early in your project development, because we might have ideas on other ways you can get resources or some technical assistance to improve your project. And again, we'll pass you along to other people in the group. So, really contact any of us. And we do have, if you're associated with nonprofits or municipalities in some ways too, please do contact me or CDFA to learn about our other programs, because we have a lot of resources available. And thank you very much again for your time.
Thank you, Scott.
Yep.
So next we are going to hear from Ken Nierman of USDA Rural Development about the Rural Energy for America program. Thank you, Ken.
Okay, thank you, Melissa, and thank you everybody for taking time out of your day to join us here. My name is Ken Nierman. I work for Rural Development. We have offices in Concord, Lancaster, and Conway, New Hampshire, and 3 over here in Vermont. I cover the energy programs for both states, and my goal is to give you a pretty decent overview of the Rural Energy for America program, which offers loan guarantees and grants for small businesses and agricultural producers. Next slide, please. So what is REAP? That's what I'm going to call it. Rural Energy for America is just too much of a mouthful. So others have done it. We'll just kindly refer to it as REAP. This table here summarizes the minimum and maximum grant amounts that you can apply for in the blue and green areas. As I said, a project must be either renewable energy systems or energy efficiency improvements. It can't be both. We can't mix and match. But you could submit one application of each in a fiscal year. The orange, I guess they're orange on my screen. I don't know if they're orange on yours. Down below are the guaranteed loan amounts. A common misconception is that we have loans, and unfortunately we do not. We have loan guarantees, which you can think of as insurance for your lender. Maybe you've approached a lender and they're uncomfortable with what you're asking to do. Maybe you're a new business or the collateral is a little skimpy. They can come to us and ask us to guarantee your loan with them against loss. So it really isn't something that you would approach us about directly, although you certainly can. It's a tool to know about in case you do encounter a lender that just might need a little bit of a push. But grants, I know, are what you're interested in. That's what keeps me busy a lot lately because we have a deadline coming up for applications. Grants, if you notice, they can be up to 25% of your eligible project costs. So there are total project costs, there are eligible project costs. Hopefully they're equal. Sometimes they're not. I'm not going to spend a lot of time about what is ineligible. Maybe I'll dive into it just a little bit on the next slide, if you wouldn't mind advancing, please. So we've talked about what, so who is eligible for REAP? You can be an agricultural producer or a rural small business, and you certainly might be both. If you are and you want to apply, we can talk individually one-on-one, which it makes sense to apply under. The key difference is that a small business has to be in a rural area. A few minutes ago, Andy Duncan shared a slide with New Hampshire Rural Renewables, and it had some sections of southern New Hampshire that were ineligible. That's what we follow. We can always punch an address in if you're kind of unsure and figure out if you are in fact in an eligible area. Agricultural producers don't have to worry about that. You can be in a non-rural area as long as the equipment that you're looking to purchase supports agricultural production. Or I'm sorry, supports energy efficiency for your production. It's funny, Andy also mentioned the SBA standards. I will do that too. So how do we know if you're a small business as opposed to a large business? We look up the NAICS code, North American Industry Classification System, I believe it stands for. They're very generous, and the maximums are set at gross annual revenues or number of employees. I've only seen a couple of instances where we could not entertain an application because a business was too large. It really isn't a big problem where we are. Let's see, a for-profit. Again, I think it's been mentioned before, but municipalities, unfortunately, nonprofits, REAP can't help you directly. In a renewable energy project, the off-taker or the beneficiary of, say, some solar panels on a town roof, maybe the town leases the roof to a for-profit applicant and sells the energy to the town at a reduced rate. We can do things like that. We can get creative, and I'm more than happy to get creative. You know, my goal is to get our money out the door and not send any of it back to Washington, D.C. at the end of the year. Next slide, please. Okay. This slide, I won't spend a lot of time on. It just highlights some of the types of projects that we see and can do, but it certainly isn't in an all-inclusive list. Solar, wind, hydro. You see in the bottom right-hand corner, that's an actual hydroelectric dam that was defunct, and we gave the owner a grant to get it back up and running, and producing a ton of electricity. Up top is a reverse osmosis machine for a maple sugar producer. We happen to do a lot of those, but we can look at lighting, boilers, furnaces, anaerobic digesters. I don't know if we have any of those in New Hampshire, but we do in Vermont. Get creative. If the technology is tried and true and it exists, then chances are we can take a look at it. One thing I got to point out, though, no matter what type of project you have, residential, if it's a personal residential, energy use, we can't do that. We do run into a fair number of farms, small farms, where there's 1 meter, and that 1 meter runs the house and the farm. There needs to be a way to split that energy usage off. There are some non-scientific ways to do it. There are some scientific ways to do it. That's where, you know, a technical service provider might be able to assist. You know, perhaps Mark, Andy, or well, Scott, I don't suppose with an energy audit that would really apply with a renewable energy project. But there are ways to do it, and then we would prorate the grant to be 25% the piece that helps offset your business use. A little complicated, but we do that. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's look at how much we have and when the funding's available. We just entered fiscal year 21. The application deadlines have been announced and are shown on the left. November 2nd, coming right up, March 31st. These dates are pretty typical. We have a competition in the spring, a competition in the fall. The fiscal year 21 funding hasn't been announced, so I put up the fiscal year 2020 amounts. So the year that just ended, these are the actual dollar amounts in both Vermont and New Hampshire that we made grants, we put out in grants. We should get a similar amount this year. I don't see why it would be less. In fact, it could even be a little bit more. So roughly 620,000 for New Hampshire. As a general rule, I don't like to use jargon. So please pardon the terms restricted and unrestricted. I do find them more useful when talking about the two separate pots of money that we have. If you recall from the maximum and minimum grant amounts from a few slides back, the maximum renewable energy grants, $500,000. We don't get too many of them, but we do get applications for 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. And remember, that's 25% of the total cost. The maximum for energy efficiency is 250,000. So it wouldn't take long to chew up $620,000. But luckily, what we do is we take a minimum of 20%, in this case, a little bit more, and we restrict that money for smaller grants, okay, to give truly small businesses with smaller size projects an opportunity so that one or two don't come in and just wipe everything out. So we take the restricted grant money and we cut it in half. So in this example, fiscal year 2020, about 70,500 was up for grabs in the fall in New Hampshire, 141,000 divided by 2. And that is reserved for grants that top out at $20,000, okay? It can be less than 20,000. Your project can be 200,000, okay? As long as you're not going over 25%. So a $200,000 project can apply for a $20,000 grant. People don't realize that. That's only 10%, but they're not going over the 20,000. Okay, so we do that in the fall and we do that in the spring. What we also do in the spring is we compete the unrestricted funds. So those are subject to those maximums that I just mentioned. Now you notice I did use the word compete. Unfortunately, because this is a finite amount of money, these grants don't operate on a first come, first served basis. They are scored as they come in. And The more energy you save, the more energy you produce if you're a solar generator, or the more energy you replace by maybe converting from an oil furnace to a wood pellet furnace, the higher your score. There are a variety of things that go into a score. I can't possibly get into all of them. We'd have to have a whole webinar just for that. Suffice it to say, though, that the success rate is pretty good. It varies from year to year. I would say New Hampshire, this year that just passed, for small grants, roughly 75% of those who applied were funded. And of the large pool, I believe it's roughly about the same, about 75%. So don't let the competition piece scare you, and I can work with you on the score. If you get your applications in early enough, I can tell you how you score and how you might be able to improve it. Okay. Again, my goal is to get the money to you, into the New Hampshire economy, into your pockets to get you going. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's some information that you need to know. Aside from the application materials themselves, which I would encourage you to get directly from me as opposed to our website. Our website is good, but it's not intuitive as to what forms you need if you're going to apply to REAP. So I would really encourage you to call me or email me, and I'll get you the forms. If you're going to have an energy efficiency project, you're going to need an assessment or an audit. Okay. Scott talked about how his operation can possibly help out with an audit. An assessment, and I might be speaking out of turn, I'm not positive, but Mark's outfit perhaps might be able to do something like that, or maybe not. The thing with these reports is they have to be done by an independent third party. There may or may not be a cost to an energy audit. If you do a renewable energy project that's over 200,000, it requires a feasibility study. There's definitely a cost for a full-blown feasibility study. But Lakes Region Community College can help you with a good chunk of that might count as a feasibility study. If there are costs, you can include those in your overall project costs because we're asking you to do it. We're requiring you to do it. That's why you can include them in your project. They're the only cost, however, that have that designation. Okay, they're the only pre-application costs. The way it works is we want to have a complete application in and reviewed, determined that it's complete, and then we would tell you that it's complete, and you can spend money to your heart's content. No guarantee you're going to get the grant, of course, but you want to be careful with starting work before you apply. Be careful with deposits. It's not retroactive. Okay. Let me see. I'm trying to give you some more pointers here that I think are really important. REAP is a reimbursement grant, so you've got to have some way to pay for the project up front when you're ready to do it. The good thing is when we tell you that you're going to get the award, you have a full 2 years in which to do your project and then seek reimbursement. We would come in after the fact and reimburse you your 25% or whatever the case may be. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to conclude with a handful of tips. Applications can be sent in a variety of ways: email, fax, mail. You can drop them off in person. Even in COVID, you're not going to want to come on all the way over here to Montpelier to drop them off to me, but we'll have somebody in Concord, probably Lancaster, if you do need to drop these off. Maybe Conway. I'll have to check with them. The preferable way used to be in person, but now it is definitely scanned. If you can do it electronically, that's the best way. And they have to be in at 4:30 on the due date. There's no flexibility there. Again, if you can get your application in early, it allows me to look at it, tell you if there's anything missing. Ask questions. Definitely ask questions. Don't make any assumptions. You know, these are federal forms, and I'll be the first to tell you that I know they're intimidating to some people. And I think the energy forms, though, they designed them pretty well. They make sense to me anyway, but I've been looking at them forever. So if you see something that doesn't make sense to you, pick up the phone, give me a call. And lastly, more is better. In this case, feel free to supplement your application with anything you think is important for us to know about your project. If you can't fit something that's critical into a little space in a box, then create an attachment. Send it along, you know, diagrams, plans, anything like that. More is definitely better. All right, I think I'll conclude with that and leave time for questions.
Thank you so much, Ken, and thank you, everybody. It was really informative. We haven't had any questions come in, so I just really want to encourage the attendees to type your question into the question box, or just type your name and we'll know that you have a question and we can unmute you and you can ask your question. In the meantime, I have some, I don't know if this will work, but some scenarios that I'm wondering if I can just sort of present to the group. Say, for example, I am a business that is interested in installing LEDs. Well, first of all, having an energy audit done of my building, installing LEDs, and maybe new refrigeration. Who should I reach out to first? Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. Depends on where their service provider is, I would suppose, right? Where their utility.
Yeah,
Oh, Mark, assume
say we have Eversource.
Yeah, so if you have Eversource, you could call me or send me an email. Thanks, Andy. And we have a turnkey program where we can send vendors out. We have lighting vendors and a refrigeration vendor who can come out and take a look at what you have now. They recommend new systems for you. They do everything on the project, sorry, from going and ordering the lights, taking out the old stuff, doing the permitting, disposal, everything. And then we pay at least half of the total cost of the project. You can also do that on your own if you'd rather. We have another program to do that.
I would say the caveat to that is if it's, you know, you think you're aware that, you know, there's a lighting and, you know, maybe one other measure that you think you want to be doing, but you're open to this idea of a more thorough audit, then you might want to have a conversation with, well, Mark or myself or Andy. You know, Andy could potentially come out and sort of do a quick discussion with you about the opportunities, or if you think you might want to go deeper into, you know, all the opportunities and you have some measures that would be beyond, you know, electric, and tell me if anything's changed, but my understanding is that if you're looking at measures that are based on your oil heat, so weatherization and you're heating with oil, then you might want a more comprehensive audit, and then you could come, talk to me about energy audit funds.
Yep.
And then later be talking, and then I guess taking it to the next steps, looking at a potential REAP application.
Yeah, in addition, yeah, that's great information. And Mark, I wasn't aware that it's 50%. That is fantastic. One thing I should have mentioned is that we don't reduce our grants if you are getting a grant or a rebate from somewhere else. So, the only time we would do that is if it's federal money. And again, it would depend on where that federal money comes from. There's a 75% cap. Chances are that's not going to happen. So you could apply for a REAP grant of 25%, potentially get 50% somewhere else. And your return on your investment is going to be huge.
Yeah, and the utility's only restriction on that is you can't make money on it. We can't give you more than 100% for all combined sources. So,
right.
Because our charge is to save as much energy as we can with the money that we have. So we don't want to just give away money, but we don't really, I've run into that maybe once.
And lighting's a good example where it's kind of tempting to just do it on your own and it's relatively inexpensive, but there's a lot of really good technologies out there in terms of controls. And some of the people who that Mark is mentioning who do this as a living can really kind of go after some of the subtleties of making the lighting work for you, not overlighting, not underlighting, getting the right technologies. So sometimes it does make sense working with a professional.
All right, so we do have a question coming in. You can finish up, Scott. Okay, so this is from Josie, and she wrote, "Hi, I am in Jefferson, and I received a grant for a wood pellet boiler several years ago. And although I never met Ken, I've worked with him to get this grant. I would really like to look into solar and or wind power. Am I allowed to apply for another grant? And where would I start to look into solar? I cannot do it this year, but I'm hoping within the next year or two."
You want me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, I would encourage her to work with us with Rural Renewables, and what we can do is, whether or not you're going to be installing this year or next year or 3 years down the road, we can do kind of a level 1 solar assessment, kind of an idea of what your electric bills are and what sort of space you have and what you could be producing, and just kind of at least a rough idea of the costs and the incentives. The nice thing now is that these incentives are probably going to be changing. But if you combine the REAP grant with the 26% federal tax credit, at least through 2020, that's about 50% off the costs, the retail costs of the solar installation. And who knows, there might be some new infrastructure grants coming down the road, but that number's at the federal level is going from 26% down to 22%, but still almost 50% when you combine it with the REAP grant.
I'm gonna try and unmute Josie. And Josie, if you have any other questions, you can feel free to follow up now. You should be unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. So I got the grant for 75% of the wood pellet boiler that I got. I think it was 3 years ago. It's at Israel River Campground in Jefferson.
I think so, Josie.
Yeah. So, is there like restrictions as far as applying again for another grant for this, or?
No, there is not a restriction. You can apply again. The one hazard to doing that, and we have had multiple repeat applicants who are successful, but the one pitfall is that within our scoring mechanism, there is a little bit of a point hit if you've had a grant previously. But don't let that discourage you, because there's a lot of things that go into that ultimate score. So I would definitely encourage you to apply again. And that was a fun project, and I appreciate the pictures that you sent afterwards.
Yes, it was fun.
It was my my first campground. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Josie. All right, so I'm not sure if this is a question we will know the answer to, but Katie asked, as a not-for-profit, who would we talk to about a solar assessment?
So that would probably be me. Depending on what town you're in, we have another program that I didn't mention that's new, that is works with another part of USDA, the Community Facilities Program. And so you could contact me and we could potentially support through a grant, covering part of the cost of a feasibility study and such. But you can also, have initial conversations with just a solar installer in many cases. But I'm happy for you to reach out to me. We can talk more about that individually as a nonprofit or a municipality, those kinds of projects we might be able to support studies for.
And Katie,
Yeah,
can I
Katie, sorry.
I'm just wondering Katie's business, the name of Katie's business. And where
I
she's
will
located.
unmute Katie right now. You should be, oh. Let's see. It looks like Katie is self-muted, but she says Summit by Morrison in Whitefield, New Hampshire.
Thanks. Did you have something to add, Andy?
I was just going to suggest to Katie, if you go to the New Hampshire Rural Renewables website, there's a directory that we have of commercial solar installers, and it gets you at least a decent idea of who's out there and who's worked with what kind of projects those installers have done. There's a lot of installers that primarily do residential, and it's a smaller group that does commercial projects. And so, feel free to give me a call or email and can give you an idea of who might be installers to talk with.
Great, thank you, Katie. I don't have any more questions as of right now.
I'll just add that regarding the financing, the utilities are able to, finance some types of projects. If it's solar, though, that wouldn't be in their camp necessarily. And our financing, if typically what we do is we finance if it's efficiency, then we kind of take off the incentive that you get from the utility, and then the remainder is what we finance. But if you're going for a REAP grant and you're not sure if you're gonna, say the application is a little bit down the road or hearing about that, you have to have your cash out there for a while, we can roll the REAP, the amount you've applied to in REAP into the loan amount. And then if you get the REAP grant, you can pay it down by that amount. So it's a way to keep the, the cash flow, make that make sense for a project. So I just wanted to make sure that was known, because sometimes you may not get that REAP money for a little while, whereas a utility incentive usually you'll get fairly soon after you're complete.
So Scott, in addition to the program that you have for feasibility studies for nonprofits, do you offer financing for nonprofits?
Yep, nonprofits and municipalities. Yep.
Great. Well, it's 3:59. If there aren't any more questions.
Nope, no more questions as of now.
Okay, I guess maybe if anybody has really quick an example of a business that you can think of off the top of your head that has used your program, that might be helpful. But
Gosh, who hasn't?
yeah, in the North Country, if you can think of one in the North Country.
Farms for sure. Ski area. A lighting store, bed and breakfasts, campground. Post office. Now you'd think that's a nonprofit, but the building itself was owned by a for-profit, and the gentleman owns the building and leases it to the post office. So that was an energy efficiency improvement.
I think I did that energy audit.
I think I worked on it with you.
Yeah. The little red building.
It was blue.
Is it blue? Okay.
Blue.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
neat.
I'll mention one that not in the North Country, but I thought it was a great example of kind of the using the different resources. So this was a daycare center down, a for-profit daycare center down in Brentwood. And they, I think, were initially looking at solar opportunities, and someone suggested that they look at, getting an energy audit. So then they came to us, they used our this energy audit, small business energy audit funds, and they got the 75% off the audit. Through the audit, they were able to look at doing weatherization. They did air source heat pumps, which the solar installer ended up, they do air source heat pumps as well. So they were involved in that, and they did lighting. They did quite a bit, and the Eversource was involved as well and gave quite a few rebates there. So it was, and then at the, they said, are there any other resources available? And I said, well, yes, USDA, but the applications due on Monday, and it was like Thursday or Friday. And I said, at that time, I was like, I don't think you're gonna be able to do an application. And she said, well, I think I'm gonna do two, one for efficiency and one for solar. And she went ahead, and over the course of a weekend, she still like amazes me, this, this person was able to do this, but she did 2 USDA REAP applications and got them both. And over a year out, and she has saved substantially, as well as generating some of her own electricity. And it was a really great project, not to mention a lot of daycare kids watching the whole thing, which they love. It was an excellent project.
That's awesome. I think it's really useful to hear about all of these programs, and also really useful to hear about how much overlap there is and coordination amongst you all. So, if you reach out to one person, they're going to know about everything else. And I think all of these folks are really interested in incorporating everything that's available for businesses. So don't hesitate to start reaching out to some of these people. And thank you so much, everyone, for presenting and attending.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.